I think it's all about trust. Exactly what you're saying. I think an added piece of that too um, is that trust in yourself that you do know the heart of your manuscript.
This is You May Contribute a Verse. I'm Brenna Jeanneret, kidlit author of The Law of Birthdays, illustrated by Maria Condra, coming May 1st from Cardinal Rule Press. I'm joined by my co-host Josh Monken, kidlit author of Naked, coming soon, Dad and Science Communicator, and podcast wizard Jon Seymour, author-illustrator of the newly released A Morning with Blueberry. That was our guest, Andrew Hacket, teacher extraordinaire, talking about the importance of finding the heart of your manuscript, and he just so happens to have 3 books coming this year. We chatted about all 3, the publishing journey behind them, and the most important ingredient in writing, trust. Here's Andrew's verse.
You have a lot of kids, Andrew?
It feels like a lot.
Okay. You have a medium number of kids. You have a lot for me.
Probably,
I have
it's
2.
probably one too many, to be honest.
For the recording, which one would you jettison?
Yeah,
if you could.
You got to toss one.
It really
right
depends
now.
on the day. I'm equal game any given day. It could be.
You would lose a third of each one.
They each think someone else is the favorite. They're absolutely assured it's not them. And it depends on the day. You know, the most difficult one I would
They're
probably
all wonderful.
keep.
They may listen to this.
They might.
all six children between us may someday listen to this recording. They're all wonderful, amazing.
Right,
Love them equally.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Are you in a robe?
I am not
Andrew?
in a robe.
Or is that a hoodie?
It is a hoodie, but that would be quite a.
I'm in a robe.
Oh, all right.
You are nice.
We're going full post Christmas.
I mean,
you're looking very Jedi Knight.
Very
right now.
Good.
Very.
This is one of those. This is a Jambies robe. I don't know if you guys know about Jambies, but my brother lives in Los Angeles and likes fancy things. And it's a weighty fabric.
Oh, I love that.
That feels very. It sits on me portentously.
Ooh.
And feels very Jedi.
I sleep with a weighted blanket, and it's amazing. I love it. So when I was gone for Christmas, so Finn and I went home for Christmas, and Gene was here. He was reading something about weighted blankets, and apparently there was a review. It might have been on Reddit or I don't know, whatever. But the dude was writing on there, and he's like, "I really like my weighted blanket, but I miss my wife because it's like weighted, but in a way that like forms this like fortress." And so like if I fall asleep before Gene and he like tries to get underneath, it will like wake me up, and I'm like, what's going on? So he stopped trying to like get in there because it's like it just wakes everybody up, and he's like he just thought that was really funny because the weighted blanket is super nice.
It could be good to keep your children away from you if you're not looking to be disturbed. And
you know what's helpful is that they have a king sized, which is the thing that we need because it's too small right now. It's like the queen sized one, and so it's like just barely fits the both of us. But one of us, not me, is super wiggly, and so they pull all the blankets. So like that's the problem. Anyways, they do have a king sized, which we are going to get.
I feel like that could be a good amount of weight.
So Gene's the one that,
yeah. Gene's the one. What?
Gene's the one you would jettison.
No, not in 100 years. We talk often about just getting in our van and just driving, like just the 2 of us. Leave Finn, leave the dog, leave the cat, and just like keep driving. Like, remember when this used to be us? Like just us in the van.
Wow.
Like, that was so nice.
Finn's wonderful. Finn, you're wonderful.
No, he is. We wouldn't actually do that, Finn. Yeah.
We're coming in with a post-Christmas attitude here.
I know. I judged this morning. I was like, "Are you ready?" I'm like, "I'm about to jump in." He's like, "I'm very post-Christmas." I was like, "Okay, perfect."
The house is a mess. I'm doing laundry and dishes by the ton. Unpacking all the excess snacks that came back from my mom's house yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
waiting to
Okay.
go to Kansas City tomorrow. Yeah. Anyway, let's start the
Well,
interview.
let's welcome Andrew to the podcast. Andrew, I'm so glad that you're here because I feel like we've been waiting forever to chat with you, and now it's like finally happening. You've got so much going on. I'm so excited to talk about all of it.
Yes, I'm very excited. I'm a little nervous. You guys are my first like publicity type thing. I've got things in the
Ooh.
line, but this is the first actual one. It's like, oh God, what do I say?
Ooh.
What am I going to say too much of?
Yeah, right. Too much of
we've been a lot of
jettisoning your
firsts.
kids.
Yeah,
been.
right. We'll cut
There
all
have been
that
a lot
stuff
of
out.
firsts.
Yeah, we've been a lot of people's firsts, which feels very honoring. And also, we're happy to just run with the conversation. You could sit back and relax.
Yeah, I'll just let you guys talk. It's great.
Yeah, right. We have guests on to just listen live to us chat.
I'll chime in once in a while.
Well, let's start with the solstice celebration that you did, because that was so fun. Like, I was at my parents' house and it was not the most amazing trip. So like being able to jump in and like be part of that was like, it was really like comforting in a way that I don't know if I can like accurately portray, but I really appreciated that you had put it on and I was able to like jump in and be part of it, just like, you know, connect for a little bit. So
Thanks. Yeah. I am notorious for getting an idea and I just do it. Sometimes not at the best
I love that.
timing, usually against what is best for my life. And it happened 2 years ago. I believe it was Mark Wright and CK had a Twitter exchange about this idea of doing some sort of Secret Santa-esque type thing, but not having the bandwidth to do it. So I was like, sure, I'll do it.
You're like me. I have no bandwidth. Let me do it.
And I'm pretty sure I messaged one or both being like, you guys don't mind that I'm not like stealing your thunder on this, am I? They're like, no, please have at it. And it's one of those things I think we'll probably be circling back to again and again in the conversation, is just the generosity of the Kidlit community, of how willing they are to join in with an idea, to support others' ideas. And so I'd been a part of a few other Twitter chats. I think it was probably Justin's. He had done for a while. And just mirrored the setup, so to speak, and asked for some donations of things, because who doesn't love prizes? Like, that's always my big...
Right?
I benefit from many a critique win from people in my writing life. And just a way to have something to celebrate. You know, especially all of this and all my writing career basically began during COVID times. So to have that connection, to have another avenue through which to engage on a bit more of a personal level, because, you know, liking someone's post or reposting something, that's all wonderful and it's supportive, but it's lacking that actual connection. And so just to put something on so people could jump in and join in. This year I felt maybe algorithm-wise, things were a little bit down or harder to see. I'm always one of those social media people who's like, I don't want to be inundating someone's feed with me or feeling like self-promotion. So I sometimes pull back on saying things too often, maybe to a detriment of some of these events. We had a good number of people and it was great conversation. I think it just builds camaraderie, you know, and that's I think what Kidlit community is known for, or at least my experience has been.
And I so appreciated that it wasn't a like a scheduled Zoom that you had to jump on, or like, you know, like it's happening now, but you missed it. Like, I came on kind of late. Like, I think I jumped in like 20 minutes, half an hour behind. And I just was able to like go back, start at the beginning, like, you know, comment on stuff and like engage with people, like sort of when I could. And then like, you know, I had to jump out because I had to do bedtime and it was like not a big deal. And then I jumped in the next day and was just like, oh, thank you. Like, that was so great. And so it was a nice like open platform. And also I love that you did it around solstice, because I mean, you can't get away from solstice. Like, everybody, you know, you may not celebrate solstice, but it's like, you know, it's part of the world. So it's not like, right. But it's not like an exclusive, like this is for Christmas only, or this is just Hanukkah or whatever. Right. So it's like for everybody, like this is just like, you know, the light is changing and whatever. And like, let's do this cool thing. So like, I very much appreciated that you did it. It was really fun
Thank
to
you.
jump
Yeah,
into.
we've, as a family, I guess I probably brought it. I don't know. Make my wife do it. Eve Bunting's The Night Tree has always been a book that
Oh
I
yeah.
love reading to my classes. And so we as a family have tried to take that on as a tradition of going out on the solstice, going for a hike, finding a tree to decorate with animal safe, edible ornaments, and just kind of make it a tradition that's not based on a specific holiday, so to speak, just another um, memory for them to have that maybe they'll carry it on with their kids, maybe they won't. Um, and so trying to think about how to do this new event, and I didn't want to speak to one specific tradition or holiday. I didn't want anything to feel exclusive to people. And so going that route seemed to fit in with something that our family values, but also that would hopefully have the most chance of participation. And then there's also just
Yeah.
like the book giving. Who doesn't love book mail in this community?
Yes.
And so the two kind of go hand in hand of doing that like secret giving, um, just pairing people up. And I've heard from, last year, sometimes it was people who are critique partners ended up together, sometimes complete strangers. And for me, that idea of being able to do it across the country, that it's not necessarily someone right within your normal area. I just really enjoyed how it spread that group. I think the first year we had um, close to 70 participants. This year was a little less. We were at about 44 people joining in. Uh, I'm like, if I have 3 people, that's enough to trade books with. I'm happy. So
Yeah.
anything just to bring a little bit of extra joy. And I think most of us are parents, and we don't always have people looking out for us to get us gifts. Like we were talking about before, Brenna, like we are
Yeah.
bringing the joy for the holiday. And so to have someone look out for you with just a little book surprise is a nice little gift to get.
Yeah, no, totally. Because our whole focus was just, our kid. And so we didn't really, the parents kind of get lost in the mix. So yeah, it's a nice thing to do.
Andrew, what was the format? And I'm trying to acknowledge that when this airs, it'll be several months post. I mean, post holiday season. So this will be like a period piece. But
Sure.
yeah, I was not able to join. And I'm curious if it was like a rolling attendance kind of a thing.
Yeah, so there's kind of
very, very friendly.
2 parts to it. The book bash part, the secret book gifting, was people, I think there was like a 2-week period after Thanksgiving that people could go and sign up. It was using a different website that would just do the partnering for me. So my hands were kind of out of that mix. And so right after or soon after Thanksgiving, it drew partners, and people got an email saying, this is who your secret partner is. Participants had the ability to make a wish list of books they might hope for that their partner could select or just use as kind of inspiration for what they might like. And then a couple weeks later, there was like a deadline of try to send out your book by this time so that it would be there in time for solstice. And then the actual live-ish event was on Twitter, but I also did it through a blog post this year. Because I know a lot of people have left that social media platform, and I didn't, again, want to be excluding people because they have their reasons for not being there. So it was just kind of it was a 2-hour span on the solstice. Every 5 minutes, a different post went out with a question, a game, or a giveaway, and people could just kind of chime in and comment on each other's as time goes by. And I've said I would leave it up for a number of days before I go and select the winners randomly so that everyone who wants to can participate.
Did you pre-schedule all the
I did.
tweets?
That's
oh my
smart.
gosh, Andrew.
I did.
Every 5 minutes for 2 hours.
That was a full morning of
so that tells me that
together.
Yeah, that tells me that you are an excessively organized and prepared person, which I suppose you must be as a teacher, right?
And that would be very false. I can be. I can get hyper-focused when there are deadlines. I'm a master of making a giant list of all that needs to be done and then never looking at it. It's more like I need to clear the clutter from my brain, and then life goes on, and usually those things happen.
Well, then let me press on something, because this is something that I struggle with immensely, which is every writing deadline that I have that's not related to my day job, which is mostly writing, is self-imposed with very little accountability. So I wonder, I mean, we'll start with the solstice thing. I wonder how you're bold enough to say, like, I'm gonna do this. I don't have to do this. Nobody would be sad if I didn't do this, but I'm gonna do this and hold myself accountable. Did you have accountability partners that you that helped you with this, or you just did it?
I just did it for this one, and it has been a thing that I, in reflection or in process this year, as it was all going on and my wife was picking up all the pieces of everything I neglected, that next year I will probably look to bring on some partners who want to be a part of it as well. For once, spreading the word, but also a lot of these things I find are more enjoyable to do with others, right?
Totally.
I have a habit of getting an idea and just wanting to do it. I mean, that's how my blog happened. It was just like, hey, people are doing other writing related things, and it seems to be, whether true or false, it seems to be leading them to other successes and other growth in their writing. So I think it was around this time, a few years ago, I was like, I should have a blog. I'm going to make a blog. And I just did it.
What a thing.
And then I randomly reached out to authors of like, hey, any chance you want me to interview this person? You have no idea who I am, but be my first guest on this unproven platform. Sure. And people signed up. So I'm a kind of a jump 2 feet in type person when the moment strikes, even if it's against what would be best for status quo of my life.
So that begs the question, because that is how our podcast started. Same thing. We were like, yeah, let's just do that. Let's like start that. And people started saying yes. And I'm still always surprised and thankful when people are like, yeah, we want to come on. I'm like, okay, great. But that is also that's how I write. That's how I live my life. That's just that is how I do things to also. So my question is, are you that way in your writing also? Are you a pantser in writing, or are you more of a plotter?
What's the middle ground? A plantser?
A planter? Yeah, right.
I am in the camp of, I typically like to know my themes. And it's kind of just how my ideas come together anyway. It might be in a title. It might be, I know I want to be touching on this certain topic. So I will do a certain amount of outlining. I have a ton of notebooks. I will jot out, not necessarily plot points, but just like, again, my brain gets full of ideas. So I need to do this like brain dump so I can actually sort through those pieces and figure out what the puzzle is. When it comes to the actual writing, it just happens. I'm a very visual thinker, and I know that doesn't work for everyone. I see my stories as I'm writing them, like play out like a movie in my mind. And so that's often when I know I'm onto something, when like I've stopped writing. And I was like, well, I was just over there in that garden. Like this is, may not sell, but it's captivated my own interest enough to make that whole world I was just living in. But
I mean, and you have, I'm sorry.
No, keep going. You're good.
I was just going to say, well, you have 3 books coming out, and I love the, you're going to have to remind me what the compilation, the name of it is again.
Gnomes and Unknomes.
Gnomes and Unknomes, which is like so clever from the Writer's Loft,
yes.
Right? Is that right? Okay. It looks so cute and so like just so clever. And like I said, I think I commented when I saw it come out, but I was like, that is like a title or like an idea that I'm like, oh, I wish I would have thought of that. Like it's so like it's like right there, right? Mm-hmm. But you just, you don't think of it, but it looks awesome.
Yeah, that was I had seen it was through the blog. So much of my connections and things have happened as a result of running the backstory and interacting with authors and illustrators. Amanda Davis was on. I believe she's been on twice. She's in Massachusetts like me. We happen to have gone to the same college, although we didn't know each other. But we
Oh,
we have a
crazy.
fair amount of connections. And at the time I had interviewed her, the anthology preceding Gnomes and Unknowns was out, which I'm gonna blank on the something and anemones. It was an ocean-based
I was
anthology.
gonna say something about sea creatures,
Friends
right?
and
Because I
anemones.
looked into it. Oh, that's so smart too. Yeah. Yep. I remember
Yep.
seeing that now. Yep.
So I had seen about that. I had seen or heard about it from her. The Writers Loft, which is also in Massachusetts, they do great programming. We're so fortunate in Massachusetts. We have such a crew of authors and illustrators in a very small space, which I know from talking to other people is not their reality, that they don't have that community.
Well, that's the benefit of Massachusetts being like tiny. It's like, well, if you live there, you know everybody, right? It's like small.
Well, and I grew up in Rhode Island, the smallest state. So I just I'm not moving up too much in my size of state.
Right.
But
Massachusetts is like the big
this was a
state
big
for you.
step
You're
up
like,
for
all
me.
right, I can really stretch out. Yeah.
But the Writers Loft had done they do a holiday gathering each year. And I was at one of that. They were celebrating Friends and Anemones. And that's just how it got on my radar that this wasn't a one-off. You guys fairly regularly, every couple of years, put together new anthologies. So when the call for submissions came out, I was like, I don't fancy myself a poet, but I like to play with words. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have 2 poems.
I say yes
there.
to new and strange opportunities for sure.
I say yes to most opportunities. But yeah, and it was absolutely amazing how it came together, and the pairing of illustrators, the amount of authors or poets and illustrators in there is huge. And so you've got people who just want to give it a try. You've got well-established names in there. That it's just a really cool way to be a part of another community, all with similar values and similar desires of what we're working towards. So
yeah, and so you are also in the Haunted States of America anthology.
Yes.
Which is, I mean, that's awesome. I wrote something to go in there, and I remember I asked you, I was like, hey, I know you're going to be a part of this, like, please help me, like, how should I do this? Mine did not get picked, but I did make it into a middle grade, so that's cool. But yours
really
got picked, and I was
capitalized
able to read it.
on that rejection.
I did. I was like, I like this story. I'm just gonna keep going. But yeah, I was able to read yours before it got printed for the anthology, and I mean, I was captivated. I totally saw why they picked it. But how fun is it to be in that anthology also?
It is amazing. I forget that it's happening a little bit because I think the call for submissions for that might have been 2020. Like, that one's going back a ways, and it was a very slow it was just very slow in coming together, that it often kind of drops to the back of my mind, and I don't view myself a middle grade author. I don't have aspirations of doing that, so it's out of my genre. So when I talk about my debut year and books I have coming out, that's one I have to oh yeah, that's happening too. And because it doesn't fit in nicely, so to speak, with my brand, I guess, for lack of a better term. If I want to do author visits or publicity in that way, it's not a book I can bring along with me. It needs its own separate audience, just because of the nature of it. That it was amazingly fun to write.
Yeah.
I just
totally.
That was one where I was in it with those characters. I felt every moment as I was writing it.
Yeah, and so the reason I got excited about that call is because it wasn't in my brand at all. I didn't think about writing middle grade at all, but I was like, I'm I'm like, that actually sounds really fun. And they, like you said, it was like a long time coming, because I think they had done an initial call, then they like, sent out who was going to be included, but then they were missing like 13 states or something, one of which was Alaska, which I spent a summer living in. And I was like, oh, great. I'm like, I could write one for Alaska. And I spent the summer giving these tours through this old like coal or copper mining building that's like still standing. It's 14 stories. It's like crazy. So anyways, same. I didn't ever think I was going to write a middle grade, but then I started and I was like, this is actually really fun. So it's like fun to branch out into those like new and weird places, like you're saying, with, gnomes and unknowns and now haunted states and whatever. But I just want to circle back. I do have a question. But you don't actually want to write like middle grade or like YA
not
or
at the
like
moment.
Chapter book. Okay.
For me, I think, and I probably should, because we all know the pace of publishing is glacial at best. So it's not like there isn't the time, right? I think for me, it's a commitment thing. I can work with 500 words 10 different ways in a short amount of time. The commitment that middle grade authors put into drafting, and then the idea that could get shelved just seems heartbreaking to me. Of like, how could you spend, right?
Tragic. Absolutely tragic.
Like, I just can't. Maybe it's just a self-protection type thing. Like, I don't want to open myself up to that hurt.
Yeah. Right.
So there have been times I have a manuscript that I've been told many times, have you considered making it a novel in verse or upping the age category? I'm still just really stubborn about it. Like, I'm not ready. I'm not ready for that.
Like,
I also
no.
don't want to learn any new tricks at the moment. Again, I think it's self-preservation, though. I have a lot going on. I have a full-time job as a teacher. I don't know that I could put the time necessary to learn a new genre to do it well. And I also feel like I'm not quite satisfied in the picture book realm yet. Like, obviously, I'm not. It is a little greedy.
Only 3 books in 1 year.
Meaning, I have so many other things written that I hope will get their time in the light, that I'm just not ready. If anything, I'm expanding lower. That in 2024, we're going to be going out with a early reader series.
Oh, that's exciting.
So that's I'm cool. Really excited about, because for most of my writing, I have taken this idea of being an elementary school teacher, which is my job, it's my career, and kept it very separate from being a picture book author. Obviously, there's parts that intertwine, right? So much of my knowledge of how kids behave and what they would enjoy has been from 17 years of working with 8 and 9-year-olds. Like, it's just, I didn't do it on purpose. It's just kind of a byproduct of what I've done. So this is one of the first times in the early reader series I'm really using my teacher knowledge of, I'm making it so it is readable for our youngest readers. I want to be targeting those second graders, even third graders who struggle with reading, and what's been currently available to them makes them feel less than, because it's so obvious that this is a book for a kid who can't read, that I want them to feel accepted. Mm-hmm. So much of what I think graphic novels does for many kids of gives them that increased accessibility. So I'm hopeful. I think we're going to send out 2 manuscripts for the series, and I've got 6 other pitches waiting in the line for other books. And so each one focuses on a word family. So a set of rhyming words would be embedded in it, but it's not solely those words. And trying to put in, I inherently think kids are clever and smart and often capable of way more than we grown-ups give them credit for. So find a way to make an early reader that isn't talking down to them, that is hitting them with humor at a level they're ready for, even if their reading abilities are lower than where they would like them to be. So I'm very, very hopeful.
It's time for this week's book reviews. From Jon, Mrs. and Mr. MacLeod's newest tale, The Door That Had Never Been Opened Before, is a mysterious and brilliant story paired with nostalgic, eye-catching illustrations. Rather than just a story, it feels more like an invitation into a world of curiosity as we follow the Grunion siblings into another incredible and unique adventure as they set their eyes on the door that has never been opened before. From Josh, Boo Boos of Bluebell Elementary is a love letter to school nurses and eventually to dogs. Chelsea Lynn Wallace's rhyming ode is graphic, kinetic, and real. Alison Farrell's melodramatic depiction is so spot on, and props to the art direction for the addition of the running patient tally, which is such an endearing bonus. Go listen to our chat with Chelsea if you haven't already. And my review for this week is Harriet's Reflections by Marion Kadi. Thanks to Kidlit friend Ryan Bani Tamaseb for recommending this one. As they say, every story has been told. What makes it different is putting your spin on it. At its core, this story is about self-acceptance, but Marion's idea for Harriet's reflection to change places with that of a tiger is both intriguing and delightfully creative. Don't forget to get your own reviews and library requests in. It's the #1 way to help an author's sales. Community shout-out time. Love the podcast and want to help support more great episodes like this one? Check out our Patreon and choose the tier that works best for you. Grab some cool podcast swag, or give a community shout-out, or even leave us a review. Anything helps to spread the word. A big thank you to everyone out there listening. And now, back to our show. Yeah.
And this is not... would you describe this series... I'm super intrigued by this. Would you describe this series as aimed at higher than like phonics? Because when I think of word families, I think of like, oh, these are at words, or this explores the hard and the soft A, that sort of thing. It's aged up from that, right?
It is aged up from that a bit. I tried really hard to keep it within a vocabulary that most students in the younger elementary would be working on. So sometimes they're called sight words, sometimes they're called trick words, heart words. So words that you can't really sound out, but we use them in our everyday vocabulary very frequently. So it's a lot of those, and then not necessarily exploring like short A sounds or short E sounds, but keeping it within the context of words that our younger readers should be able to sound out.
Did that come about, Andrew, because you had like kids in your class that were having trouble in that area, or your own kids, or just I'm just curious because we talked to Laura Gell recently. Her episode has not aired yet, but that's kind of where her motivation came from, because she has an early reader series out, and she said it was because her kid also had trouble, and she was in the school system, sort of trying to like make that work. So
I think it's definitely a natural influence on it, that being second grade level, every year I get non-readers. Some of it is just, we just need more time. Sometimes there is an underlying learning disability that's playing a part there. So it's definitely a part of it. I think it was last spring at my regional SCBWI conference, I attended a panel on early readers, and that was pretty inspiring to me to hear from someone who was doing it, see the range of them. I believe soon after that I was at my kid's soccer game, and like I had gone to the library first, and I had a stack of 20 of them, and I was going through and taking notes of how many pages and what sounds do they use and who are the characters. And then I did nothing with it for a really long time. So it's kind of been an idea that's been festering. And my holdoff was, I think the character choice is so important in these stories. Like the personality and who are you using, because they need to carry multiple books. And, there's been some that have been done so well that how do you live up to that, or do something different? How do you expand on that?
I was going to say, do something different. I feel like that's what I always struggle with, because I'm like, oh, that's such a great idea, and I love how they did that. But then you sit down and you're like, for me anyways, like it comes out very similar to what I've read that I really like. And I'm like, now wait a second, like I need my own idea here. Like I have to, I have to expand and like make something better, different,
Yeah.
what like something to add.
And you're using so few words of how do you get across personality in characters when I'm limiting how many words I'm using, I'm limiting my vocabulary choice, and yet they still need to interact and have a relationship and their own defined personality, maybe some growth. Like it's
right.
So it's
asking a lot. Yeah.
Yes, but it centers around Squirrel and Turtle. And Squirrel loves books, and Turtle is more of a reluctant reader. And that's also something I wanted to explore in an early reader, is showing a character that doesn't like reading. Because we talk so much in the kidlit world of representation and kids being able to see themselves in books, and absolutely. But then I'm looking at these early readers aimed at our youngest, most struggling readers, and saying there isn't much acknowledging that reading is hard for them. Like, how could I put a character in there that, I mean, I still want to be getting across a love of reading and promoting these kids to want to learn and enjoy books, but I also want them to feel seen, because I think in schools that's a huge aspect of kids don't often talk about where they feel they are ability-wise, but it's absolutely under the surface and in their subconscious that they know, despite every teacher's best efforts, if they're struggling more than others. And sometimes it's a matter of perception, right? Sometimes they feel like they're really having a challenge, and they're right where they should be. But I just wanted something to speak to those students of, like, yeah, you're not the only one that struggles with this, and put a character in there that could be in there, and then humor, finding a way to add in some laughs, because I feel like that's a great equalizer. Like, that's what makes tough topics okay to talk about many times in lower elementary school. That we can giggle about this, but then we can talk about those underlying meanings and themes, and pull out some learning for ourselves and some growth.
And hilarity so often engages reluctant readers too. I mean, that's what I think is behind so many of the most successful sort of graphic novel series, Wimpy Kid style, books, is relatable hilarity. This is great, and it occurs to me to remark on, this is not the only time that we've done this, but this is maybe the one of the most in-depth times we've explored the core of something that it is either in the process of or has yet to go out on submission. So I can really sort of hear your passion behind the series. I am curious about the submission strategy for this, and how much you and Dan have talked about, like, where is this going to go? Because you can't sub this broadly. Not every publishing house does series. Not everyone does early readers, especially. How do you think about threading the needle?
Yeah,
there?
We've had some beginning conversations about it. This was also one that, so this is maybe backpedaling a little bit. My strategy with Dan, oftentimes, I just try and leave him alone. I just trust. I trust he is doing his part with the books we've worked on together, and that he's believing in them, and to manage my life and all the things I'm trying to do within my life, I have to release that part. I don't check in on where submissions are at very often. I give it its period out on submission, and Dan will check in after a period of time with those editors. And I just kind of wait, and I trust if there's good news, he's going to let me know. Like, he's not going to make me wait for 2 months to tell me we have a deal.
One would hope.
Right? Here's hoping.
Right.
And so with this, the idea for the books, once I came up with the characters, the texts themselves came together really quickly. And I don't know if, Brenna, you have found this also maybe in your writing, the amount of time I would put manuscripts through critique groups and critique partners has lessened the longer I've been in the game, so to speak. And it depends on the manuscript, right? If I know I'm struggling, I got my people. it's going out to
Yeah.
them. I'm waiting on bated breath to get their feedback and implement their changes because I trust them so much. This wasn't one of those situations. I made my wife read it a couple times. She's also an elementary educator, so it was like,
Mm.
look at it from the teacher lens, please. And then I sent it to Dan, pretty much unseen by others.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And he asked for a couple little changes, asked for some clarification, and he's like, "Yeah, let's go out in 2024 with these."
Wow.
So he's got a list started of people he knows is accepting of early readers. And we're just going to go from there, maybe a smaller list going out with. I think it's all about trust, exactly what you're saying. I think an added piece of that too is that trust in yourself that you do know the heart of your manuscript. And I think that's where I really, what I lean into or focus on the most with my critique partners. It also helps. I mean, critique groups, they're a relationship, like any other relationship, where you're nurturing it, you're putting in the effort to help it grow, but you as a group are also growing and changing as well. Some of my longest standing critique partners, we ended up together just by chance way back in 2020. I think it was working on Fall Writing Frenzy entries. And it was just thrown out there, hey, does anyone have a chance to critique something? I think 3 out of the 5 of us met through that experience. And it was like, oh, hey, do you mind checking this out now? What I have found with them is there's like I was saying, like a relationship, you get to know each other's personalities and each other's writing personalities. I write in clipped phrases so often, especially if I'm doing any lyrical writing. And I have had one-off critique partners or exchanges, and they have fixed every ounce of my grammar. I'm like, but I get it. Yes, it was grammatically incorrect. But that's what I want.
However,
that is me.
Right. You're like,
you don't get it.
That is me.
Right.
And I also feel like within the long-standing group, we kind of fulfill different roles. That there is one person who they know how I want my phrasing to be, but they're also amazing at grammar. And so I hate commas, or actually I love commas. I put them everywhere. And they will do that piece for me. And so I just think it comes down to that relationship and trusting each other and trusting yourself. And going back to the agent relationship, some of that trust, I think, also is knowing when to dig your heels in. You know, Dan, I feel, isn't someone I've really had to go to battle with at all for anything. We're typically on the same page. But I do think he gives a lot of freedom to his authors to he wants to make sure that what he's putting out is what we are comfortable with. It doesn't mean I don't get suggestions. It doesn't, there's been some suggestions that's like, yeah, of course that's what should have happened all along.
Right. You're like, oh, duh.
Right. And then there's been a couple of times when I say, I absolutely hear what you're saying, but I'm not willing to make that change right now.
Yeah.
And we've had to do that also with Ollie, especially. We had 4 R&Rs.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's jump in. So, okay, Ollie and the Acorn.
Ollie the Acorn
Tell us
and
everything.
the Mighty Idea. Yes. So, Page Street reached out to us. Kayla Tostovan, I'm not sure if I'm saying that the right way, understood the book immediately. She was absolutely the greatest ally, advocate, cheerleader. Like, it would not exist without her. It would not be coming out. She's no longer with Page Street.
I thought I saw that. Yeah. That's
they had some
bummer.
restructuring. And I'm super sad because I would love to make all the books with Kayla. So she loved it right from the beginning. And as a publishing company as a whole, they had some questions or some things they wanted changed. And so we got our first R&R. When I worked on it, I'm also pretty notorious for like, I'll give that back to you in 10 minutes. Like, yep, heard it.
Yeah.
Let me finish it. Let me give it back to you. I'm not great.
Yeah, I feel that. I'm like, okay, I want to get it done and like out of my
Yep.
brain. Yeah.
Not great on letting it simmer and thinking about it. I'm trying to be better. And
what I'm hearing is also a testament to, I think, the patience of your wife.
Yes, absolutely. So they came back to us after the first R&R saying, not exactly what we were looking for. And I believe at that point, Kayla offered to jump on a call with me. I mean, I was still like baby author at that point of like, ooh, an editor wants to meet with me. Like, what do I do? What do I wear?
Yeah, right.
Like,
Right.
It's so funny how much you really are all equals once you get into it. But it just felt so, it all feels so daunting when you're on the front end of it and for the first time. Even talking to other authors who are more established, there's a little bit of just like, oh my goodness, but that's so-and-so. And they're like, yeah, whatever. They're
a person doing a job.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right.
So Kayla and I, we met, discussed some options, got a little bit closer that time. And
like, give me another 10 minutes. I got
so,
this.
and I'm trying to, also stay, stay politically correct or not throw anyone under any buses anywhere. I like to leave a lot of room, not necessarily for interpretation, but I don't love to spell things out in my work. Like we talked about before, I believe kids are inherently smart and able to put the pieces together. When we got to kind of that final R&R, we're looking for a little bit more specificity in some of the character changes that were happening and character motivations, which I thought, like, obviously, didn't you read what was there? And yet, I felt like what they were asking for wasn't changing the heart of the story. And so that is a place that Dan and I went back and forth for a little bit on of our options. And he was really great about checking in on my comfort level, that I wasn't going to be making a change to something for the sake of being published if I really thought it was going to be changing the message and the story I wanted to be delivering. And it didn't, and we were able to make it happen. It did then go through about 20 title changes.
Oh, for real? Oh my gosh.
I'm curious what it was before.
It was originally like manuscript 1, draft 1. It was called To Be a Tree. And
okay, yeah.
And
it came a long way.
Through like early critique groups and things, one of our meetings, someone came up with a very sad look on their face, like they were gonna, tell me my puppy died or something. And they're like, "Did you see this book?" And there's a book called Be a Tree, which is about mindfulness. Came out a few years ago. I was like, all right, that means a title change.
To Be a Tree is a sequel,
right?
Like the Fast and the Furious,
right? So it then became Oliver the Mighty Oak. So his name was Oliver in the beginning. Page Street, however, I believe it was the very first children's book they published, is about a tree, an oak tree named Oliver.
Oh and my gosh! What are the odds?
Really threading the needle,
right? Yeah. So like the list of brainstorms that went on during this period of possible names, and then some people didn't love. So it's Ollie and Everett are where we landed with names of the two boys in the book. And I was very intentional with the names because I don't do it always, but I feel like you can convey a lot through a name. And I love books that have little Easter eggs or things where you as the reader read it and you just pause for a second and you go like, that was smart. Like, that's what I hope people will do. Ollie's name is Ollie Alexander Kanderstein. I wanted a really long name. because this idea that his name is bigger than he is, being such a little twig of a person.
Mm.
And then I wanted his initials to spell oak because it's all about an oak tree.
Oh, smart.
And
Yeah.
then
Love it.
Everett, who at one point was Eli, he was something else at another point. Oh God, what's his middle name going to be? His initials end up spelling Elm. Eli
Oh,
Lucas
okay.
Montgomery. So towards the end of the
Awesome.
book, there's a spread that has their initials on a tree and kind of just like gives that away for the people that are looking for it or not. But we went back and
Yeah.
forth on names a bunch, you know, what filled the role of the stereotypes we were kind of going for a little bit, what didn't fill those roles. And then just the email exchanges of title brainstorms were out of control. Like every pun imaginable. And so we landed on Ollie the Acorn and the Mighty Idea because I apparently like long titles.
Wow.
The initials of the title don't spell anything, though,
They
sadly.
don't.
Which
That's
is okay.
for
That's
next
not what
time.
we're looking for.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, for next time.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
At what point did Kaz come into the picture with this
Oh,
negotiation?
Kaz, I love Kaz. I cannot say enough good things
I
about
mean,
her.
We do too.
Right? Yes, she has been on the show. We also love her. Yes, but yes, tell us everything.
So this was a place where you hear so often picture book, kind of the warning as the author only, like you have to be not tied to that visual image of what you think. And I, like I mentioned, I'm a very visual thinker. I see them happening as I write them.
Right.
So and I'll get back to Kaz in a second, but for Curly Locks, which will be my second book, but it's the first, when I decided to take writing seriously, the first manuscript I wrote. I saw every single spread. I knew exactly what I wanted to look like. I made the worst sketch dummies ever as I was working on it to work on pagination.
Wow.
And so I remember getting to at some point in my author journey of the like, I have to release this idea that I have any say over what anything is ever going to look like in any of my books. I was very fortunate that Page Street reached out when we got to that part of signing on an illustrator, and they did ask me for suggestions. So I was able to I believe I put 4 names forward, Kaz being one of them, and they came back to us with a list of 4, 3 people that they had found. I don't know if they had worked with them before or in what way that came about. And Kaz was the 4th person on the list. And Kayla said, we love all 4 artists. We think they would each do a tremendous job in their own right, in their own style. Give us the order that you want us to reach out to them in. And Kaz was the number 1.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. And to have her, and also to have her be available, right?
Yeah.
Because I know she had like 6 books come out like in a year, I think, right?
Yes.
Or like back to
She
that.
has
Like
been
she just like exploded. Yeah. So I mean, for her to be not only on both lists and for them to be willing to ask you to put them in order and then to reach out and for her to be available, I just feel like that's, I mean, amazing.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
That's so
everything aligned.
I mean, it couldn't have been.
Serendipity was in my favor.
Yes.
So yeah, and like I've told Kaz this recently, so I feel less awkward about it. You know, I spent then the next year stalking her social media. Of like, there's that line
Right.
of like, you don't really interact with the illustrator during the process of creation. You're not trying to influence what they do, or and I wasn't, but I
Right.
also wanted any chance of sneaking a peek at anything she was doing. So
Totally.
full on stalker mode of every social media she had, and then anytime I would spy anything plant related or just like run into the other room, you're like, I think I see something.
Right.
She
like
drew
that,
a boy.
Right?
Yeah, that kid's name is obviously Ollie. I
Right?
can just tell in the eyes. It looks like an Ollie.
And I'm sure you know from having spoke with her before, but she does the most amazing videos about illustrating and just really sharing industry knowledge and in such a personable way.
Yeah, and what is? Hold on one second. What is it called? The
Cuttlefish Academy.
Cuttlefish Academy.
Cuttlefish
Yes,
Academy.
I just wanted to shout
Yep.
it out real quick.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cuttlefish
Okay, go
Academy.
ahead. Sorry.
And then just all the little videos she does. And so I first and foremost love her illustration. I was fortunate enough that she and I, along with Kelly Swemba and Monica Acker, were on a panel together for SCBWI. Not SCBWI, I'm sorry,
I saw
NCTE.
that. No, and I was gonna
Too
say
many
yes.
letters.
It's the other acronym. Yes, the other one. And I saw that. That looked amazing.
It was incredible. And so the four of us, we spent like 48 hours together, and it was just
Oh my gosh,
so.
awesome.
The book's done, right? There's no influencing happening. We're just getting to be together as creators and get to know one another. And so all three people, I can't speak highly enough of just them as humans. And then Kaz's just her talent, but also everything she represents, and she represents it so authentically that it's hard to not want to be around people who present that way. That she just owns who she is and is doing so much good for kids in the representation she's showing in her books. I can just make this a whole Kaz commercial because it's like fan club.
Yeah. No, she's I mean, I 100% agree. She's like so authentic and sincere and just like, yes, very grounded in who she is. And she's so sparkly.
So
I mean,
sparkly.
how can you not love that? I mean, right? So.
Literally.
I have hopes that in the future we'll be able to have another collaboration. I would.
That's like a dream. She's like a dream illustrator for me.
I don't think they'll
to work with. I would absolutely love it.
I don't think there'll be an Ollie 2, but I have some other projects that if they ever get through acquisition somewhere, she would be number one on my list of fitting that artistic style that would best represent them.
Yeah. Amazing.
Manifest.
Well,
right.
I know, right? So we are like up to the hour. So one, I want to say thank you for being so generous with your time. And two, do you just want to shout out your third book real quick that's coming out?
Yeah, absolutely. Hope in the Sea comes out with Worthy Kids on May 28th. The illustrator is Svetla Radivoeva. I hope I'm saying that the right way. And it is, I've seen those full colors recently, and she has done such an amazing job. So it's about a young girl who's having some big feelings at the beach, a lot about friendship and a sense of belonging. And the ocean or the sea comes into play as a character and really facilitates Hope's ability to build friendships with others and build that sense of belonging in this new place that she's at. So
that's very Schwashby and the sea.
It is
sort of like it has that similar sort of vibe. I love that. It
totally kind of brings about that vibe, and it's my first one that's coming out that's lyrically written.
Oh, that's exciting.
Ollie and Curly Locks are humorous, a little absurd. Ollie's definitely absurd. And then Hope brings in the more gentle side. So it'll be interesting to have all three out and see how they are received. And then hopefully more to come.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I can't wait. If you're listening to this, pre-order his books.
Yes, please.
Find his stuff on his blog. Yeah. The backstory. You can find everything there. Yeah. What were you going to say, Jeff?
I feel like this is a pattern that we're starting to do where we'll start to do the wrap up at the hour, but then I have an irresistible question that
I've got time. It's okay.
So maybe we can do this like a new sub-segment of the podcast. So we'll do parting questions or parting shots. So as a final question, I'm interested in hearing you reflect on the reality that Curly Locks and the Three Hairs was the first manuscript that you have written, and for that to be out in the world is miraculous. I don't know about miraculous because you seem very dedicated and committed, but like I think of the trash that I was writing when I first started writing picture books, and like it would take 100% revision rewrite for me to make that core concept work. So I just want you to reflect for a minute on how you got to this.
Yeah. Oh goodness. A lot of support.
Coming in with a doozy, Josh.
A lot of
sorry.
No, it's all good. I think for me, when I started writing Curly Locks, that was like I had dabbled in this idea of being an author since high school and just never had the bandwidth, the knowledge, I just didn't know even where to begin. So when I started to write Curly Locks, because it was a fractured fairy tale, there was a little bit more of a set structure. So that took away a little bit of the open-endedness for me. But it was, painstakingly looking at every single word as I went, thinking it was perfect. And then, not. And it sat for a little while. What happened, the Little Press, they reached out to us based on our picture book submission of it, because it was originally a picture book, and said, we have a series we're starting of modern fairy tales that are easy readers, they're calling them. And would Andrew be amenable to switching formats of this book? My first thought was, do you know how hard I worked to cut this down to 500 words? You want me to double that now? So
how dare you?
Right? So it was just, maybe that's the theme of all this, that the self-reflecting is happening through the interview of I'm pretty willing to take on any challenge and to jump in both feet and give my full effort with really zero expectation of success, 100% expectation of effort, and see where it goes. Because, Curly Locks had been out for a little while. We weren't getting much traction. A different story had out at the same time. I was getting glowing feedback from editors, and it made me cry, and this everything but we want to buy it. So comparatively, hearing so little about Curly Locks, I was in a place to be a bit more accepting of some changes. I was already in a place of thinking maybe this does need some sort of revision to be tackling the market. And that's a thing I had no clue about before. You hear people talk about having multiple hooks and its place in the market. And when I was first writing, I was just writing what made me happy. And I'm still doing that, but I evaluate those ideas a little bit more deeply before I sink my teeth into them now. So to have Curly Locks coming out now is incredible. And to have that first thing written, I feel fortunate because I know how many books get shelved by authors and how many I probably will need to do myself. And then doubly or triply, wherever we're at in the gratitude here, it's inspired by my daughter. So to have that connection and to have a book, it's dedicated to her, to have her be able to hold that in her hands. Because when I started writing, obviously my kids were younger, they're getting out of picture book age a little bit. And so to have that come through when it did, for her to be able to still hold it and have that sense of like, wow, this is really special. Like, not only did you write a book and you put my name on it, like you wrote it as a result of my experience, is something I hope that she will treasure for her life. And just a really special gift to be able to give.
Gosh, yeah. I feel like that's a great story of a first manuscript, because mine is like Josh's, where it was like written in rhyme. I thought it was perfect. Sent it to Jennifer March Soloway, because that's of course who's going to buy it.
Send it to,
like,
yeah.
Right. That's who people send stuff to. So yeah, that has been long shelved long ago. So yeah. Anyways, Josh, do you have any more doozy questions?
No, I will put that to bed, and I will say that I had to mute myself because I had to sneeze, and what a perfect way to end. What is that great sentiment? Not on the sneeze, but on the on the journey of how you stuck with your first manuscript and remained open to ideas. It's just it's true to form. So yeah, this has been a real pleasure, Andrew. Long time coming.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I know you guys. You go on like daily walks with my dog with me, so I feel
I love
like
that.
Just hanging out with old friends.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. I'm so glad that you finally got to come on and we could like actually sit down and chat. It's been awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you guys having me, and just, we all know we're all in this together, and it takes all of us to help spread the word about everything. And I think that's why we all stick around in this Kidlit community. It's a good place to be, and it's good people.
Yeah.
So
100%. Right. Yeah. Thanks for listening this week.
Find all of our episodes and other associated links and information at linktree.com/verseshow.
Or reach out to us on Bluesky, Instagram, or Threads. Thanks again, and we'll see you next verse.
Bye!